our track for the startups will be Jon Hare. So, welcome.
Thank you very much. Okay, my name is Jon Hare. For those of you who don't know me or who I am, I've been around a long, long time. I've actually been around, you can see here, since 1966. This is when I was born. This is a track about football games. It's actually the year that England actually did win the World Cup. And I was 6 months old, so there you go. I'm in love with my country's won the World Cup, although I didn't really watch it very much. My background is I ran the company Sensible Software for 13 years. So you can see here I'm wearing the Sensible shirt in the opening picture, looking rather aggressive, like I want to poke a journalist in the face. We've actually got a picture of Steve McLaren on this paper, who was a very bad England manager, and Alex Ferguson right at the end, who, not that I'm a United fan at all. This is to talk about really football specifically and a history of football games and how really my relationship with football has helped me in my career as a thing. And I guess the concept of this talk is, if you really love something, then that's great content to put in your games. Whether you love fighting or horses or history, if you have a passion for it, it actually comes out in the products you make. And this is what I found with football games over time. So I'm going to talk to you about my personal history with football and football games. And then I'm going to, at the end, show a little demo of the new football game we're making called Untitled Soccer. So you'll be able to see what right from back in the past right up to now, what's been going on. So the next slide. So the first time I was ever aware of football was in 1971. I was a 5-year-old child. I think colour TV had just come in, and it was the FA Cup final. The cup final was a big deal in England in those days. And this was Arsenal versus Liverpool, and this guy's called Charlie George. He scored the winning goal right at the end of the game, okay? Now, as a 5-year-old child, my favourite colour was yellow. So I chose to support Arsenal. And I stuck with Arsenal for a while, although I felt kidded a little while later when I realised that really their main shirts are red, but yellow was their change strip, but because Liverpool wore red as well, they had to swap, but I didn't know that when I was 5. Interestingly, the lead programmer of Sensible Soccer also watched this match as his first ever match, and he supported Liverpool. So there you go. So it happened when we were kids in those days. So this was really the first football game I seriously played. It is Subbuteo. Does anyone remember Subbuteo? Okay, so the classic game. And I had a bit of a family history here. My grandfather played Subbuteo. My father used to play with him in some kind of little tournament sometime. My dad played it, and he taught me how to play it. So we had a bit of a family thing going on here. And as a child, I used to love this list of all the different teams and all the different colours. And you had this like light blue team that was Manchester City, but it was also Uruguay, and there was also Penarol from Uruguay, and there was also Malmo from Sweden. And I used to love the idea of this. As you can see, there was even a Subbuteo World of Soccer, which I didn't know until I found a screenshot to stick up there last night. So I feel that Subbuteo is kind of a game in the blood for my family. And I realised that I really loved football, and I loved almost the international side of it as much as the actual game itself. So here's the first football game I ever designed when I was about 6. So I was the kind of kid who was always on his knees, doing stuff in the house, in the hallway, getting under my mother's feet. And I had this game where I had 5 teddy bears versus 5 like cats or rabbits or something. And I put a little plastic goal at either end and a ping pong ball, and they would kick the ball around, and I had some little rules as to how they did it. This was my first ever game when I was 6. So I guess if you want any indication of someone who wants to be a game designer, and I've been a game designer my whole career, it came from me, started when I was about 6 years old. So I think sometimes you just have an inclination towards something which may be something very different from game design, obviously. It might be art or whatever it might be. So this is the first real football match I ever saw, Romford versus West Ham. I used to live in Romford. It's not a very nice area of London on the side of it. West Ham you may have heard of. There's a reasonably good British club, doing well this year. And a guy called Jimmy Greaves is one of our famous old players from the World Cup years, was playing in this match. And this was the very first match I saw. You can see those kind of muddy conditions of playing in rain and soggy stuff. But this is my first exposure to the atmosphere of a real football match, which I remember very well. And then we have the football experience we all had as kids, except in my school, this ball was much too big. This was a tennis ball in my school when I was a kid that we were kicking around. I guess we all had different rules of what we could and couldn't do in the playground. But I remember those years of of loving running around playing football every day in the playground, and then after school going out with 2 or 3 of my friends and playing football in the park and squeezing through the hole in the fence and using the real goals and running away when the groundkeeper came, and all those things that many of us have done as children if we liked football. Of course, a whole bunch of other kids were playing war, and we would kind of sometimes get in each other's way a little bit in the one playground. But these kind of experiences shape us as to what we care about and what we understand and what we know. Because, of course, if you're playing football every day as a child, you do learn some things about football, even if it's not maybe that organised. So, here's my next picture. As I said, when I was a young kid, yellow was my favourite colour. And I discovered that Arsenal were not really wearing yellow, and I got quite fed up with them, actually. And so I switched allegiances to a team called Norwich City, here. I was relatively close to them, and they wore yellow, and I liked them. And this guy, Justin Fashanu, was actually a really fantastic player. But in my cupboard of my house, he was called Jesus Fashanu, and I painted a beard and hair on him with Tipp-Ex. And so here's a memoriam to my sticker in my bedroom cupboard when I was a 11 or 12-year-old kid. So then we're fast-forwarding a little bit, but we get to the stage where I'm 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. At this point, I wasn't playing football so much. When I got to 14, I wasn't playing in the playground so much. I was talking to my friends, and then eventually I met this guy here, Chris Yates, who was my partner at Sensible, and we formed a band together when we were 15 at school. And then we, after about 3 or 4 years of that, we went into making games together, which obviously was very successful for us. But there was a period, I would say, all those early 80s periods, where suddenly forming Sensible Software, smoking dope, playing music in a band and interested in girls, and my interest in football kind of just drifted off the radar a bit. I would still watch the big matches. I'd still watch the English triumphs until the Heysel disaster in Europe and all those things. And then bemoan the fact that my team, Norwich City, could have gone to Europe 3 times and got in not at all because of the Heysel ban, which was a bit of a sticking point for me. But anyway, time to play other games. Obviously, that was good for my games career, this part, but not so good for my football career. Well, there was a break. And then something happened. Wandering through the arcades, looking for inspiration, because as Sensible, we were very arcade machine-led with games like Whizball and stuff. I found this game, Tehkan World Cup. Does anyone remember this game, or has anyone played it? Tehkan World Cup was, like you see here, a table. And basically, this is the kind of the kick button. And this is a trackball, and you have to do this like really hard, and it actually really, really hurts your knuckles a lot, but you're doing this and making them run everywhere. And it was great fun. It was a 2-player game, one either side. And we were looking at the action in the middle and getting inspired by it. So I discussed with Chris about making a football game, because he was a football fan as well. And we came up with a game which we wanted to call Sensible Soccer. It ended up being this, Microprose Soccer. Has anyone played Microprose Soccer? Okay, this is a Commodore 64 game. This was, at the time, heralded by a magazine called C&VG, which was very big, as the best sports game on any platform ever. And this was really high-tech for 1987, okay? So, what was high-tech? Well, for a start, we've got the fact that the ball can curl and swerve. We put a replay where it rewinds and it goes black and white. We did something really fancy with the sprites, and we had these coloured blocky sprites with the blocky pixels from the Commodore 64 overlaid by the single colour outline things to give you this kind of cartoony feel, which was very revolutionary back in the late 80s. And this is high-tech graphics you're looking at here. Although I've noticed we forgot to add a shadow to them, but never mind. The ball's got a shadow, as you can see. So this game was done indoors and outdoors, and the reason we changed the name from Sensible Soccer to Microprose Soccer was purely because a company called Microprose, who are an American company, signed it and offered us a fair amount of money, so we said, okay, we'll change the name if you want. And that was that. We took our advance. And this was our first video game, football video game. So then, me and Chris kind of decided, because Sensible was getting a little bit bigger, to set up a little 5-a-side team. Now, this isn't actually the Sensible 5-a-side team. I couldn't find a shot of that. We were pretty terrible, and we played in a local league, but we had enough people in the company to make a 5-a-side team. And I started to get back into real football again. This is me, and this certainly wasn't when I was that age back then, but it's probably about 12 years ago. But actually, for me, playing football has been a really good part of my life. And for anyone who's young and thinking, I can play sport a bit later, but I can't be bothered now, I'm really happy I started again somewhere in my mid to late 20s, because then you've got enough years to play when you're fit enough. Because now I'm 50, that's kind of like too late if I'd have started then. So, just a word of advice. If you like sport, go and play it. Don't talk about it. So, then we get to 1992. Now, 1992 is when Sensible Soccer came out. Sensible Soccer was obviously a very, very successful game for us. And it really kind of, as a development company, was the one which gave us lots of money. Suddenly, we had a game which had 4 or 5 times more royalties than we'd ever seen before. And the money just kept on coming in every year. We had a new update, a new game. Sensible Soccer was really kind of a nod towards my history of having played Subbuteo a lot and fantasised about all these teams. And actually, instead of waiting for my dad to come home, which I did, and nagged him every day, can you play with me, Dad, the moment you walk through the door, now you could just play against a computer opponent, or maybe your friend if he's there. But you still got all the teams to choose from. All that football world that attracted me as a child, now I could make it come to life with my great development team and with my partner Chris and everything, and so we made this thing. So you can see that the perspective of Sensible Soccer came from the game Megalomania, which preceded it, which was a gold game, nothing like this. But we kept the perspective, and it worked quite well. And you can see this guy's taking a free kick, and we can see all his options to pass and where the goal is and stuff. So we were the first game to have guys with different skin colours. Before this game, everyone was white, which looked really bad. John Barnes, who played for Liverpool, as white is not John Barnes. It doesn't work. And we also gave people blonde hair if they were blonde, and so people started to look more like themselves. And just that small detail of shirt number and hair colour and skin colour made a big difference to the realism of the game at the time. As you can see, the graphics were very small, so we couldn't get sued for likeness images back in those days with 16 pixels. And then we had, this great team. Like I said, Sensible Soccer was made with a very small team. This is probably the team. And actually the main two people were probably myself, who did the design and graphics, and Chris Chapman there, who did the bulk of the programming. Yuvik did the support programming. Richard Joseph, great musician, did the music and sound. And Chris, my partner, kind of did the tech and everything behind it and holding everything together in that way. So we were a pretty small team and a very efficient team. We also did work with Captain Sensible from The Damned. That ended up costing money because he didn't really own the song he gave to us for a pint of beer, which ended up costing us £10,000. Well, that's another story. So, then in 1994 comes the greatest moment of my career, Sensible World of Soccer. This is the fantasy from Subbuteo gone crazy with actually about 23,000 players from all over the world, about 1,500 teams. The research, we had a guy called Mike Hammond who permanently was researching and updating stuff, who works for UEFA now for their data. And we had added to our very playable Sensible Soccer engine a huge management engine, a career mode of 20 years buying and selling players from all over the world, making your own tactics, etc. This is back in 1994. This is actually quite a long time ago now. It's over 20 years. So there was an awful lot which we innovated, and very luckily for us, and it's very gratifying to me, we got nominated by Stanford University in 2006 as one of the 10 most influential games of all time with this game, which was a fantastic accolade for us. It's the only sports game, the only game made in Europe, actually. Although technically, I guess Tetris was made in Russia, so you can kind of count it. I'm not sure it was in or out of Europe at the time it was made. So that's Sensible World of Soccer. And then we started to struggle because we had another contract to do a new Sensible Soccer in 3D, and our studio didn't really do 3D, and it kind of showed, and it was a bit poor. It did get to #1 on the basis of its heritage, but didn't quite cut the mustard. But I carried on playing football. I started to play. We had a bit more money to be able to play in charity matches. So this is me, the less thin guy, and this is Darren Huckabee. He's a fantastic, one of our classic players from Norwich. And they would put on a match. In fact, I'm going to play this year, probably my last one. But they put, kind of old stars from the teams, and you play in a charity match and play for charity. So a bunch of us fans, all us guys queuing here, play with these good guys, which is fun to have done that. And I understand as a football fan what it means to be involved and care about a football club. And then we fast forward to 2005. I set up a company called Tower Studios with a couple of the guys from the Bitmap Brothers, who some of you may have known, and we started to make mobile games. And one of them was actually a really good version of Sensible Soccer on mobile, which probably most people haven't played because we're talking about the old Nokia phones. But this is a really cool version, which was great, and it's got a GameSpot logo there as well. Look. But this time we've sold Sensible Software to Codemaster, so I'm now kind of consulting a bit more. And I did a lot of consulting. And actually, I worked on Sensible Soccer 2006, which was okay. Better than 98 for sure. But I was a consultant here. I wasn't really controlling the development company in the way I was used to. I also worked on a game called Real Madrid, the game. I just helped some friends out with some skills and stuff like that. I didn't really do that much. It was a kind of console game. I worked on a game called Football Superstars, which was an interesting attempt to have 22 players playing multiplayer online against each other on the pitch, and then going off the pitch and buying fancy clothes and houses and getting girlfriends and cars. I'm not sure it really worked, the kind of lifestyle football sim, and actually the football part was not the best, and I was quite frustrated that I couldn't really get my teeth into managing that. But again, I'm consulting here. I'm doing a few days here and there, whatever they want me to do. And this is a game called I Can Football. This was created by a friend of mine called Mev Dink, who is one of the founders of the Turkish games industry, who worked in London for quite a while. And this game did very well in Turkey. This is a better version of 11 guys versus 11, but it never really made it outside of Turkey. It's a PC game. So this is good background for me to learn about football games still. So when people say to me, what have you been doing? Well, I've been doing this kind of stuff that's kind of under the radar and people don't see it. I also designed a game, a football game with Sky Sports at one stage, which we got very near to putting out, except we couldn't get the licenses, so we had to get back from it. So there's always stuff under the radar with people that you're not quite sure what they're doing. I'm sure it applies to everyone in this room. And then I started to, when I worked for Jagex, Jagex introduced me to the prospect of playing 11-a-side football in a league, you know, a proper Sunday league, which was great because they had a Sunday league team. And shortly after, I didn't stay at Jagex very long, to be honest. But we played against this team, Anglia Ruskin University. It's a university in Cambridge. And I got very involved with the club. And at one stage, I was strapped for money, so I helped to sponsor it. So this is the Tower Studios, my logo on the shirts there. But you can kind of fall in love with the football club when you start to get involved in it and get to know the guys managing and the other guys recruiting everybody. And we've fought really hard to keep this team together, actually, over the last 6 years that I've been there. And I have to say, I've reaped some rather special rewards recently. About a month ago, we were playing in what's our Champions League, which is like a kind of football competition between about 20 colleges in Cambridge, and actually managed to score my first ever goal in my 93rd game as a right back at the age of 50. For this particular team I'm talking about, I've scored other goals, obviously. But that's really fantastic for me, and it shows me that if you persevere, sometimes you get your rewards. So I got the play at 50 out the way, and I got the actually getting a goal. It was a fluke, actually. I just crossed it and it caught the wind and went in the far corner, but they all count. So, but it's great to be involved with these guys and have something really good going on. And now I want to show you the new game, Sociable Soccer. So Sociable Soccer is actually a game which appears to be very new to people, but I've been thinking about this since about 2006, 2008. Especially when I started to consult with people and think about how we could do online games and make things work in a kind of special way. So what I'm going to try and do now is I'm going to try and get the game up and running. Let's see if it's going to work. Yeah. You noticed, you may recognise the music. It's a remix. If we can just take it down a little bit. Lucky enough, I'm developing this with a Finnish team who are very, very good, amazing people, the best developers I worked with for a long time. And one of the guys also happens to be a #1 hit record producer in Finland, so he just remixed the tune, which is rather nice. So the concept of Sociable Soccer, I'm just going to talk about it very briefly, then I'm going to show you the game in action, and Mikko here is going to help me play it. So basically, below the line here, we've got kind of sensible soccer style stuff. So we have, this is going to sound very fast, we have over 1,000 teams, 800 club sides, 230 international sides and some custom teams. We have leagues from 5 leagues in England, 3 in Germany, 2 in Spain, 2 in Italy, 2 in France, 2 in Holland, Portugal, America, Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, Australia, Korea, China, Japan, etc., etc., etc. Full leagues we're talking about. So there's lots and lots of players and lots of stuff. So there's lots of things to play here. And then you can create your own teams. This was the most popular mode in, your own tournaments. The most popular mode in SWOS was to kind of get 3 mates round and order some pizza and some beer and play a league between the 4 of you all night. So that's still in here. And above the line, we've got the new sociable soccer bit. People always say to me, what does it mean? Well, sociable soccer is drawing on modern platforms, the stuff we couldn't do in the old days because it purely wasn't there, or there was some mentality that wasn't there as well. So everything you see above the line is online play. So what happens when you get sociable soccer is the first thing the game asks you is, what's your name? So you type it in. See, this guy's called John Doe, but you'd put your own name. I'd put Jon Hare in there. Then it would say, which club do you support? And which country do you support? Now, obviously, you've got a choice of 1,000 teams here, so you're going to find your club and your country in there, right? So this guy here has chosen Madrid and Spain, this imaginary guy. And then it says, right, now create a 3D player avatar in your likeness. So he's created himself, and he's gone his Barcelona and Spain. Now he's automatically joined the Barcelona and Spain clans in the game, okay? That's how it works. Then when he's playing, he can play any of these competitions, but he can also go up to play for Barcelona, pick an opponent who happens to be online at the time in his league, play the match, peer-to-peer, or then go back, sort the league by the average points scored by all the players who played games. So to be clear, there's no preset fixture list, and it doesn't matter how many players there are for each team. So all the guys who support Barcelona will be playing matches representing Barcelona. There'll be 20 times more of those than the LA guys, but it doesn't matter because we're sorting the league by the average point score, which will always be between 0 and 3, with 3 for a win, 1 for a draw, and 0 for a loss. So this way we can have a nice fluid system which isn't held up by numbers and by people waiting. There's within this league, and the league, to be clear about these leagues, we have 800 club size divided into 16 leagues of 50 teams each. This is a big league system, okay? At the end of each week, the top 10 teams will get promoted and the bottom 10 teams will get relegated. So this gives you a nice incentive. We have the same thing here in the national teams, playing for your country, playing for your club, trying to push them up the league. If you start to play really well, your player avatar actually gets called up into the squad. So this guy's now going to get called up alongside Suarez and Messi and all the other guys playing for Barcelona. But if he starts to play badly and pass to himself too much, he'll get dropped again. But if he plays really well, he'll get called up for Spain. So you've got a whole top layer of actually building your own player career on top of the leagues and everything. And we're giving rewards for people being the best player for Barcelona this week, like playing a special tournament online. So we're talking to esports companies and things like that about that. And of course, we've got natural clanning. So everyone who plays for Barcelona has got natural things to talk to each other about in a community about their team. So that's the background of sociable soccer. If you'd like to come up now, we can have a quick game and I can show you how it works. I have it actually, we're doing it on 5 different platforms, so I've got an iOS version here as well. But we're going to try this. Okay, it's quite hard for me to talk in the mic whilst I'm playing, but I'll try, okay? And just so you can see what it's like and how nice it is to have a lot of data in the game, look, I can just endlessly replay the game with Sierra Leone versus Guinea, Wallace and Fortuna versus San Martin, so we're in the Caribbean somewhere there. Look, Namibia, Angola, and then we're into club sides, France, Belgium, Mexico. So that's the beauty of a football game. You just need a whole bunch of data. This is the Swiss League. It just gives you endless stuff. And this is Montevideo. So this is a Uruguayan club side. So it's gone to the really obscure part where it does bits and bobs of teams from every area. So anyway, that's about as much as I can show you for now. Thank you. You've been a great audience. And follow the Social Soccer Story, please. Thank you.